Today was the second day of Senate hearings on the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell after this week's release of the military's comprehensive report on the potential repeal of that policy. And while day one was a nearly 4-hour military-led class on a million reasons why Don't Ask, Don't Tell should be repealed, today's testimony was definitely more mixed.
If we change this policy, can your branch in the U.S. military make it work? And perhaps I'll start this end of the line and start with Admiral Papp.
Yes, sir, Senator. I have complete confidence that we could make it work.
As I indicated earlier, we would execute thoroughly, professionally, and with conviction.
Senator, as I indicated in my written and verbal statement, that we will follow the law and execute it faithfully.
I concur.
We can make it work, as do my most senior commanders believe that as well.
I believe we can implement the policy and will implement the policy with moderate risk to our short-term effectiveness and long-term health of the force.
Gave mixed responses on whether or not the law should be repealed. To a man, as you just heard, they were 100% unified on the important point that the policy could be repealed with an acceptable level of risk.
If we change this policy, can your branch in the U.S. military make it work? And perhaps I'll start this end of the line and start.
That is the same soundbite playing twice. But essentially you heard there the brass talking about the fact that they can implement that policy. Now, this does not mean that all the brass agreed on the urgency of implementing the policy, particularly given the prospect of a court overturning it and forcing the military's hand before the military and Congress can change it proactively.
General Casey, what is your personal opinion about repeal at this time?
Senator, I believe that the law should be repealed eventually. I would not recommend going forward at this time, given everything that the Army has on its plate.
My recommendation would be not to do it as long as we have forces that are involved, singularly focused to where they are right now on combat.
I therefore recommend deferring full implementation and certification until 2012, while initiating training and education efforts soon after you take a decision to repeal.
General Schwartz, you said that we ought to be paced by the people who are in combat. Okay, obviously we ought to consider them. Then you said 2012, that's the right date. Do you know how many people will be in combat in 2012?
I don't.
Why is 2012 the right time?
Because
there may be people in combat.
There may well be, sir. It's my conviction, though, that 2011, I have enough confidence in what's going to transpire in 2011 that I think that's too soon.
Well, I understand that, but you said it should be paced by the number of people in combat. And you don't know how many people will be in combat in 2012. And yet, hey, do it then, not now.
So
without knowing that.
There's uncertainty here, no question.
Some ask, why not wait for some more timely opportunity? There is never a perfect time. Change challenges organizations. However, contrary to expectations, this may be a better time than one might expect.
I do believe any change in the law is best accomplished through the legislative process and not judicially. Legislative repeal affords us the time and structured process needed to effectively implement this significant change within our armed forces.
Legislative action on this issue is far preferable to a decision by the courts.
So whether or not repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell should happen urgently, or could happen urgently, or definitely shouldn't happen urgently, or definitely couldn't happen urgently, depended not only on which service chief you happen to be listening to during today's hearing, but what part of the hearing you happen to be listening to that service chief during the hearing today. While we're on the topic of today's very, very, very mixed messages, we were also treated to the site today of senators trying to get the brass to go along with them on their own pet senatorial arguments, and the brass refusing to play that role.
How would you face a 23% drop in retention? What does that do to you, General Casey? Or start with you.
Senator, projections on retention are historically overstated.
Do you agree with that, General Enos?
Sure, I agree with my colleague General Casey in that I think it's overstated. My instincts, as I read those figures and just knowing the Marines for 40 years, I don't sense the same level of impact either on retention or recruitment.
They never asked the question, do you think we should repeal? Don't ask, don't tell. General Casey, should that have been asked?
Senator, I don't think so. I don't think the survey should have been a referendum of a poll of our soldiers. This isn't a democracy in the military, and I believe the way that the survey was executed gave us sufficient information to make our judgments.
Anyone else think that the question of should it be repealed should have been asked? How about you, General Amos?
Sure, I'm with the Secretary of Defense and my colleagues. I don't think that we needed a referendum-type question on that. I got the information I needed.
Senator Inhofe palpably fishing from the Marine Corps Commandant, General Amos, to try to get the answer that he wanted. General Amos not going along with that. Ultimately, the bottom line on Don't Ask, Don't Tell right now is that there's no bottom line on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. The Commander-in-Chief, Secretary of Defense, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, some of the top brass, most of the troops seem to be fine with the prospect of repealing the policy or enthusiastic about that prospect. Others in the chain of command, not so much. But for gay people who want to serve in the military and who are serving in the military, or for those who have been separated from the military even though they wanted to stay in simply because they're gay, really today, the bottom line, the only statements that really mattered today came out after the hearing. That's when Republican Senators Scott Brown of Massachusetts and Susan Collins of Maine gave written, qualified announcements that they will support repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which means it looks like Don't Ask, Don't Tell is on its way out. Some expert opinion on that still to come this hour. Please do stick around.